When we think of Rome, we imagine legions marching in perfect formation, emperors wearing golden crowns, and monuments that still tower after 2,000 years. But behind the marble and the glory lies a darker truth. Rome was destroyed not only by invading armies, but by something far more familiar to us today: money. This is the story of how wealth, greed, and corruption transformed the greatest empire in history into a hollow shell of itself, and why Rome's fall carries a chilling warning for our modern world. In the early days of the Republic, Rome was built on discipline, duty, and shared sacrifice. Citizens fought for their homeland, not for profit. Senators were expected to serve the state, not enrich themselves. Money had a place, but it was not the center of Roman life. And yet, as Rome expanded, conquering vast territories from Spain to Greece, from North Africa to the Middle East, unimaginable wealth began to pour into the city. Mountains of gold and silver, endless streams of slaves, and fertile land seized from conquered peoples, all of it concentrated in the hands of the elite. At first, this flood of wealth seemed like a blessing. The empire grew richer, its armies better equipped, its cities more extravagant. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Ordinary citizens, once the backbone of Rome, found themselves drowning in debt. Small farmers, unable to compete with massive estates run by slave labor, lost their land and moved to the city in search of survival. The rich grew richer, the poor grew desperate, and inequality became the seed of Rome's destruction. Politics soon followed the same path. Senators who once claimed to be guardians of the Republic began auctioning off their power. Bribes became the price of influence, corruption the language of government. Wealth was no longer a tool to build Rome, it became the currency of control. If you wanted laws passed, you paid. If you wanted office, you bought it. And when generals returned from conquest, they didn't just bring treasure, they brought personal armies, loyal not to Rome, but to them. Soldiers stopped fighting for the Republic. They fought for whoever promised the biggest paycheck. The Roman economy itself began to collapse under the weight of greed. To fund endless wars, massive construction projects, and the luxuries of emperors, the government needed more and more money. But instead of raising taxes fairly, rulers found a shortcut. They began to debase the currency. Coins that were once solid silver were filled with cheap metals like copper and tin. On the surface, the coins looked the same, but their true value was crumbling. This trick worked for a while, but soon merchants and citizens realized the coins were worth far less than before. Prices skyrocketed. Inflation devoured savings. Trade collapsed as people lost trust in Rome's money itself. By this time, the ordinary Roman citizen was trapped in a cycle of poverty. Debt enslaved countless families, forcing them into hopeless labor. Food shortages led to riots in the streets of Rome, while the wealthy retreated into their villas and palaces, disconnected from the suffering around them. The sense of unity that had once bound the Republic together was gone. Rome was no longer one people with one purpose. It was a fractured society, divided by wealth and power. And as always, where money leads, power follows. Ambitious generals like Julius Caesar realized that loyalty could be bought. His legions followed him not because of patriotism, but because he paid them better than the Senate ever could. This shift changed everything. For centuries, the Republic had survived on the idea that no man was above the law. But now, the law was for sale, and Rome's armies no longer belonged to Rome, they belonged to whoever held the purse strings. By the time the empire reached its peak, its foundations were already rotting. The emperors who came after Caesar inherited not a republic of duty, but an empire of wealth. They lavished the people with free bread and massive entertainment in the Colosseum to distract them from the crumbling economy. Gold continued to pour into the hands of the few, while debased coins continued to erode trust in the system. Corruption became normal. Inflation became unstoppable, and the gap between rich and poor became a chasm. When foreign armies finally invaded, Rome's collapse was already well underway. The legions, once the most disciplined fighting force in history, had been replaced by mercenaries with no loyalty to Rome. The treasury was empty, drained by centuries of waste and corruption. The people no longer believed in their leaders, and their leaders no longer believed in Rome itself. The empire that had conquered the known world fell, not because of a single battle, but because money had hollowed it from within. So, what lesson can we take from Rome's downfall? It's tempting to think of it as just a story from long ago, but the parallels to our own world are hard to